Hi friends, Audrey Henley here, and today we're talking about how to find critique partners. Okay, so this video is going to focus on how to find critique partners. And by critique partners, I mean someone you trade work with and that you intend to have an equal exchange with. So you will read their work, they will read your work, you'll both comment and give each other feedback, and you're kind of in the process together. So the implication is that you're peers. You're both serious about writing, you're in the same stage of your careers. So this won't be going into beta readers, alpha readers, I don't know, any of the other terms. I like to use the word critique partner. And I tend to actually only have critique partners. I find that beta readers are people who I give my story to just to read and tell me what they think. They tend to not get back to me in a timely manner and also just to not take it as seriously. So I think when you exchange work, you both have an incentive to keep going, to do it in a timely manner, and that way you both get it back when you want to and you put the same amount of effort in. My first way to find a critique partner is various means on Twitter. So my favorite one, and where I found like 90% of my critique partners, is hashtag CP Match. And this is done by Megan Lawley on Twitter, and she organizes this about once a month on a Sunday. And you essentially do the same thing as PitMad, but you basically say, here's what my story's about, and you might have a line about what sort of critique you're into or what kind of feedback you're good at giving. You might have a aesthetic board. You'll use hashtags to identify your project, so like hashtag YA, hashtag science fiction. And then you just message each other if you're interested in a story. The nice thing too is if you're not looking for a ton of critique partners, you don't have to post yourself. You can just reply to people and say, hey, I'm really interested in your story and I would be interested in exchanging with you. And that way you can decide how many people you actually contact. When you post, you'll get a ton of responses usually, depending on your concept, but you might not have the time to actually exchange with all of those people. So keep that in mind too. But it actually is a really effective way, and most people on Twitter who are writing are really taking it seriously. So I tend to find that's the best, easiest way to find critique partners, and they really are valuable to me. My second tip with Twitter is to just ask on Twitter, hey, are there any people in this area who'd be interested in having a writer get-together? I've met some people this way, and if you really want that real life, like to meet up with people, that's a good way to do it. My third trick is to use the hashtags of writing conferences near you. So this might not even be a conference you're attending, but let's say like you're in Minnesota and there's a Minnesota Writers Workshop going on, and you use their hashtag and be like, hey, are there any people attending this conference who are writing an adult and looking for critique partners? I've actually met 2 real-life critique partners through this method, so it works. And you don't necessarily have to go to that conference. And then I have some website ways to find critique partners as well. There's good old critiquecircle.com. And this is where I went like 10 years ago when I was first starting to get really interested in fiction writing and taking it seriously. So I went ahead and signed up. You essentially get credits, like you critique people's stuff and then it's sort of like an honor system. They'll critique you back, you get credits. I think you have to like get a certain number of credits before you can post your story. This isn't my favorite way to get critique partners because it's very piecemeal and you sort of have to earn the right to post your story. You can potentially get a lot of different voices. I'd say this is probably really great if you have a short story actually, because you can get a ton of feedback at once for a short amount of text. But if you have an entire novel, like it's going to take you forever to earn enough credits to post that. Critiquecircle.com is definitely an option, but it wouldn't be my first choice. And then second, I have BookCon. So they actually have a critique matching service, so you can for free post a little bit about your story, and it's sort of like a ad, like, hey, I've got this story, and yeah, people can be interested in it and contact you. So that's a good way. It's free, and I haven't tried it myself, but it seems like a perfectly good way to do it. Third is Wendy Hurd. So Wendy Hurd has a critique partner matchmaking service. I don't know if this is running all the time, but I did this a while back. You essentially put your name in a bucket on her website, and she actually goes and matches people she thinks would work well together. And I had one really good match this way and one not so good match that way, but I don't know, I think it's still a good method. And sorry, I have another way to find critique partners online, and that is through Reddit. So Reddit has several subforums about writing. I'm not a huge Reddit user, but I think the young adult writing community is pretty strong there, and you can even like post chapters and people in the forum can critique it, or you can form that one-on-one bond that you would form on anywhere else like Twitter. So Reddit is another place to try. Okay, so you have someone who is potentially a critique partner for you. You are interested in their premise, they're interested in your premise, and you decide, let's try this out. So what do? My recommendation is to go ahead and submit your first chapters to each other, or like your first 10 pages. So I have really short chapters, so I'm totally used to being like, can I please send you like more than 2 pages, thanks. So try to exchange like an equal amount of work, and then you tell each other what sort of critique you're looking for. Specifically, you give them any questions you have about this particular scene, and then let them know what kind of feedback you're good at giving. This is important because some people have a thinner skin, and so if you're very harsh, they won't be able to actually process the helpful information you're giving them. On the other hand, and this is me raising my hand, if someone gives you too many compliments and doesn't give you stuff to work on, it doesn't feel sincere and it feels unhelpful. Like, why am I taking the time to do, like, I'm literally giving you this to tear it apart. And that's what I tend to do when I critique as well. Like, I'm not a shark about it, but focus on things that can be improved rather than everything I loved. But there's also the good middle ground, which, you know, you always try to shoot for, which is pointing out things you like and also things you think can be improved. But anyway, it's good to talk about that up front, what you're good at, what you're not good at, and just know that going forward. Okay, so you've exchanged, and then you get the pages back from them. There's a few things you'll already know at this stage. One is, are they quick? Do they get back to you? And then you'll have read part of their writing. So, and this is going to sound really harsh, but is their writing something you're interested in? Did reading it feel hard to you? And if a piece of writing doesn't read very easily or well, it can actually take you a longer time to critique it. I know this from personal experience. If you aren't actually excited about a story, it's a lot harder to critique. And I actually think it's better for both the person you're giving feedback to and you to be honest and say, I don't want to continue being critique partners. Yeah, because they want someone who is going to be enthusiastic about their work, actually gets what they're trying to do. And if you don't get that, then you won't be good critique partners. I've had experiences where I thought I understood the point of a story, and so I gave feedback in that direction, and the person I gave feedback to was like, whoa, 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 that's not what I'm trying to do. And I was like, oh, I didn't get the point of their story. So I would not be a good critique partner for that person. So that's something to keep in mind. I should have said this earlier, but it's usually a good idea to have critique partners in similar age categories and genres as you. Well, not necessarily the same. So I've had a ton of critique partners who write YA fantasy, and I do not write YA fantasy. I write YA speculative, but we still tend to have like interesting things to say to each other. But if they were writing adult fantasy, I might not have as much to say about that, so that probably wouldn't be a good match. So if they've gotten back to you in a reasonable amount of time, and you liked their story and it was easy enough for you to read, now you have to take in their feedback, take a look at it, and is it helpful? Do they point out things you missed? Do they get your direction and your story? Was it delivered in a way you could process? So if you have a thinner skin and need a little bit of a compliment sandwich, and you ask for that up front, did they give that? If not, think about whether or not you can deal with their criticism. But yeah, if it feels like they really gave you some good ideas and it's all clicking and you're like, oh my god, that's such a good idea, I should totally do that, that's who you want to keep. Another thing to think about is how fast they think they can turn around a critique, how fast you can turn around their critique, and whether or not that's a fit. And so if all of that goes well, this is the point at which you go ahead and exchange a manuscript. Or I've had cases where I've exchanged chapter by chapter with people. You know, they're drafting something and want to get feedback right away. I'm totally willing to do that, and so that's something I personally do as well, but that's up to you. Whether you want to do full manuscripts only or go ahead and do it piecemeal. While that preliminary, like reading the first chapter step, doesn't always guarantee you're going to be good critique partners, it's a good starting point. There's a high probability that you two will get along and be good critique partners. Okay, so hopefully by the time you follow all these steps, you will have a critique partner and it'll be smooth sailing and you will get the feedback you need. Critique partners are so important. They really do get you that extra mile you need in order to self-publish, get an editor, or go ahead and query. So critique partners are vital. You really need them, and these tips have worked for me, who is more introverted than everyone in the room. So if I can do it, you can do it, okay? That's all I have for you now. Please like, subscribe, comment, and hit the little bell thing. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Bye!